What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at a pair of cards in Wave 2 of the Transformers TCG, Rise of the Combiners, which are pretty gosh darn good for ranged characters. We are getting extremely close to the release of this game now, and I do want to continue to go through all of the battle cards. We're pairing them up, grouping them up, and today it's time to have a little bit of a chat about ranged characters. And we're going to start off today, ladies and gentlemen, by having a little bit of a look at Cooling Vents. It is an upgrade armor and is one of these annoying ones that has an orange pip and gives you +1 defense. So you need to be playing a bit of a mixed deck here, because if you want to go full attack, you don't really want the +1 armor, you want the +1 attack. And if you're going full defense, you'd rather have a blue pip than an orange pip. So it is very much, it's not letting you do too much along those lines. But when you put it on a range character, you repair 1 damage from it. So you get a bit of repairing along with the increased defense. That pretty much is why you end up with an orange icon here, because it's just a little bit too good as a defensive card if you give it a blue icon as well. And look, the repairing here is quite nice. Medic will repair 2 from a character, but the problem with Medic is it doesn't have a battle icon of any description. So, okay, you're repairing 2 rather than 1, but then you don't get the extra defense. Emergency maintenance can be good, it only repairs 1, but if you've got more stars in the KO area than you've got on the battlefield, you actually get to repair 3, and repairing 3 is incredibly strong here. We do have Repair Bay that repairs 1 damage from each of your characters, but then again, unless all of your characters are damaged, this probably isn't going to be any better. The repairing 1 damage here is actually really, really nice. One of my biggest issues with this card is that we've got other options. And one of the biggest things we've got here is Rapid Ascent. You see, Rapid Ascent is also for ranged characters. It's also an armor. It also gives you +1 defense. It also has an orange icon. It is extremely similar to Cooling Vents. And when you put it on a character, a ranged character, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and scraps it. Now, they get the choice of which one they scrap, but it is a little bit of hand disruption. We don't have a huge amount of hand disruption in this game, certainly not compared to a bunch of other games. So all of a sudden you're now making this choice. Do I want to go Cooling Vents or do I want to go Rapid Ascent? Rapid Ascent has never been my favourite, but it's an option. I mean, honestly, one of my favourites here has been Armed Hovercraft, which is for ranged characters, and it gives you +1 attack with a blue icon, i.e. the opposite. And when you put it on a ranged character, you do 1 damage to each enemy. I'm much more of a fan of that. Having said that, doesn't really matter because that's a weapon. So you can put both of them onto 1 character. One of the things I really like here, I have long been a fan of the combination of Photon Bomb and Bombing Run. I mentioned it in a previous video. And many, in fact, but one that was like today or a couple of days ago, depending on the order. If it's as I've planned it at the moment, today. Photon Bomb does 2 damage to each character, yours and your opponent's. Bombing Run then takes 1 damage counter from each of your planes and puts them onto one of your opponent's characters. And look, they're planes. They are going to be ranged. Of course they're going to be ranged. Why would planes not? To be fair, Ramjet in alt mode is a melee character, but in bot mode it's ranged, so I feel vindicated. So now all of a sudden you can be using Bombing Run to get 1 damage counter off each of your planes, but then you've still got 1 damage counter on each of them. And we looked at Fling recently that lets you move 1 damage counter, or indeed you could just play a second Bombing Run. I mean, if you can play a Photon Bomb, survive for a turn, and then go Brainstorm double Bombing Run, that would be kinda sick. Unlikely, but pretty awesome if you can pull it off. Maybe use this, because this is an upgrade. So you can play this on the same turn as you play a Bombing Run. It's not likely you'd have to have a killer hand, but you could, in theory, go Brainstorm, Photon Bomb, bombing run, and then play a Cooling Vents, and all of a sudden one of your characters is completely healed. And all the others have only got 1 damage on, and you've put a lot of damage on your opponent's side of the field. I'm not saying it's the best card ever, but I am saying it's decent healing, and it gives you decent defense. And I think it really depends, but there's a lot of decks where I'd rather have this than Rapid Ascent. At the very, very least, it's a good alternative to Rapid Ascent. And you don't have to play it instead, but it's at least something to keep in mind. The other card we need to have a look at here is Marksman. Marksmanship, I should say, is another card, and it's an action, and it's got a blue icon, which is nice if you want the defense. And if you have a ranged character on the battlefield, do 2 damage to an enemy in bot mode. This is really, really strong. Like, arguably over the top strong. Because you see, doing 2 damage is not something we can do lightly. Now, to be fair, Plasma Burst. But Plasma Burst has no icon. This is Plasma Burst, but you also get a blue icon. And the ridiculous thing about this is, you just need 1 character anywhere on your field that is a ranged character. Doesn't matter what mode they're in. Doesn't matter if they're tapped or not. If you've just got a ranged character somewhere on the battlefield, and it does have to be yours, it doesn't count if you're an opponent, you do 2 damage to an enemy. Now, admittedly, it is in bot mode. So maybe your opponent can keep all of their characters in alt mode, and if they do, fine. But actually, that's not often going to be the way it is. Honestly, the biggest problem here is that your opponent can try and direct the damage. So if there's a character that they really, really don't want to take the damage here, then they just make sure that character's in alt mode and it can't take the damage from marksmanship. But let's say it's something like Optimus Prime Battlefield Legend. It's a way better attacker in bot mode. So they can stick in alt mode if they want, but they got 2 less attack and they don't have the 6 skill. So actually, yeah, fine, do it. How about Grimlock? Grimlock here's got the Redonk skill in bot mode, whereby if they overkill an opponent, the damage gets redirected. So fine, leave Grimlock in alt mode. Have a lower attack, and lose a skill where you get to redirect the damage. See where I'm going with this? Your opponent can keep their bots out of bot mode to try and make sure you don't get the damage here. But there are plenty of characters for which that would actually be a very poor idea. If you're playing ranged characters, you've got to consider this. We talked about the Photon Bomb bombing run combo earlier. That's a lot of what I call cheeky damage, non-attack damage. So why not play this as well? We've got Thundercracker. When you flip it into alt mode, you get to do 2 damage to one of your opponent's melee characters. And we've got Starscream here. That is the Air Commander. When you flip it into alt mode, do damage to an enemy equal to the number of other planes you've got, generally 2. So if you're going cheeky damage here, and you're playing those characters, and you're playing Photon Bomb, marksmanship fits quite nicely into this. And the only real downside is you've got to have a ranged character out. Well, you're going to be playing ranged characters, or you're not going to be playing it. And your opponent's got to have something in bot mode. But as I've just shown, there's an awful lot of times your opponent is going to have something in bot mode. Or they're really, really hurting themselves. And if your opponent is deliberately leaving a Transformer in the mode they don't want it in to try and hurt you, yeah, I'm completely and utterly fine with that. These are some good cards for ranged characters. And I know I've been focusing largely on planes. It doesn't have to be planes. There are plenty of non-plane ranged characters. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of characters that can use this. And there are a lot of times that 2 extra damage is going to be good. You could just play Plasma Burst. But do you really want to? When you can have a blue icon as well? Maybe you do. Maybe you do. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, comment section. Tell me what you think about this. Go nuts in the comment section, but please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about games, as I'm sure you probably would expect. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.